So I'll begin explaining instructional design with this very simple example. When we started studying, we started with the very basic concepts. First, we started with alphabets, letters, then we moved on to word making, sentence making, and then eventually to the stories. So it was all in a logical sequence. If you think about it, not just English, but anything that you've studied in your education was always bounded in this similar concept of logical sequencing. This is a very simple example of instructional design. Instructional design is basically the process of creation of instructional experiences wherein you make sure that the learner gets the skill or the knowledge in a manner that it's efficient for them, it's effective for them, as well as it's very much likable for the learner. The concept of instructional design was actually originated during the times of World War II. It's interesting that during the time of crisis, there were a group of renowned scholars like Benjamin Bloomberg and B.F. Skinner who were actually considering to invest all of their energies into making the learning technologies develop. Why this was happening was very simple, because that time the concept was not just to provide learning, the concept was to program the learners. They did not just want to emanate any kind of learning that would benefit the learner. It was not about mucking up textbooks. It was more about to make a learner eventually engaged as well as interesting and smart enough to understand the content he is going through. Even though the concept is dated back to the World War II era, but what happened in the recent years is very interesting. With the coming of education technology, people started valuing the importance of instructional design. Why did this happen? So I think I'll start this by explaining about the three major components of any instructional design technique. The first one is the tools. There are three different kinds of tools which an instructional designer uses. These could be the physical tools in the form of e-learning courses, which we are all aware of. The other kind of tools are the strategies and the learning disciplines which are involved while creating an instructional design course. The second component are the kind of people involved in an instructional design team. These could be the internal core team, this could be your management, this could be your SMEs or the subject matter experts who give their opinion, as well as your learners who will be the end consumers of this learning. And the third component are the kind of industries that are using instructional design these days. Initially, it was thought that because it's learning, it will be mainly dominated or taken care of only by the higher ed or the K-12. But right now, if you see, the trend has been changing a lot. A very recent and good example of understanding instructional design would be the concept of ADDIE. ADDIE stands for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. In this, if you study about it, it's very simple that firstly, the instructional designer analyzes the group of learners he or she is going to deal with. The second part is of the designing. By design, I do not mean just the fancy decorative things of how the content or the learning content is going to appear, but designing in the terms of how the curriculum will be shaped. Will it be serving only the auditory learners or only the visual learners? There always needs to be a perfect balance between the two. The third part is the development. The development often involves including of online courses in learning technology, which are very much common in the e-learning era. The third part is the implementation, where this kind of carefully designed instructional design courses are treated and eventually provided to the learners. The fifth, which is the E, is the evaluation part of it, where once the learning process is complete, the learners are then asked to evaluate themselves as well as their peers and of course the instructional designer on how the course served them. Many a times people forget about the E part, the evaluation, but this is what is the core and necessity to understand how the instructional designing is working. Instructional design is a necessity for any kind of organization, be it universities, K-12 or even military, because learners need to be guided everywhere. Be it direct intervention or indirect, instructional design always paves the way. But there is also one more thing attached to it. It is said that content always precedes design, because design in the absence of content is nothing but a mere decoration. So every instructional designer also needs to put a lot of energy and thought into designing a curriculum which not only satisfied the need of one learner but all different kind of learners. So I think that is where the importance of instructional design lies for us.